A child victim advocate is someone who is an advocate for a child that has been a victim. This is most often the case when it's having to do with the family that did the victimization. If there's been abuse or neglect, then this person comes in and helps this child and finds what's best for that child in the absence of the parents. One organization that I found that has these child victim advocates is called CASA. It's a court-appointed special advocates. It's based out of Seattle, Washington. And it actually is kind of throughout the nation that they have these CASA or court-appointed special advocates that help these children. Usually the judges use these court-appointed advocates for special circumstances, really difficult situations or difficult children. They'll bring in these special advocates. And obviously it works because they've shown that these children who have these advocates by their side are more likely to get adopted when that comes the case. And then once they're adopted, they're less likely to go back into foster care. So really helps the child kind of move on in life. The working environment for a child advocate, a lot of times it's volunteers that are doing this. There are some paid positions with police stations or nonprofit organizations, but a lot of time it's a volunteer position through things like abuse shelters or hotlines or things like that. That these people are coming to them for help, and then these volunteers can help them through the court process. The child advocates need to have a flexible schedule because you need to really work around this child and their needs rather than just 8 to 5. And then if you are a paid employee, then you can plan on working about 40 hours a week, sometimes a little more, just because you got to get everything done for that child, can't leave anything behind. This job can be a little bit stressful. Obviously, you're working with children who've been abused or neglected or other things that would cause them to have to go to court and need someone to aid them through this process. And these children a lot of times don't know how to deal with this situation. They're younger, they're being taken out of their homes after an already traumatic experience of being abused or neglected, and then being brought into the court process, dealing with judges and lawyers and cops, things that can be really scary for a child. And a lot of times they just really don't have any other way to react other than to act out or, not be cooperative. So that can be difficult. Another difficulty can be the fact that you're doing kind of the stressful things like legal paperwork, dealing with lawyers, things like that, so that the child or the parent, if they're involved, doesn't have to deal with those things. And obviously they're stressful things, which is why you're doing them, so that the child and the parent don't have to deal with that stressful situation. And then another stressful or a stressor of this job would be knowing what's best for the child, or on your best judgment, knowing what's best for the child and not being always able to get that. That's part of your job as an advocate, is to fight for that child, because it's not always as easy as saying A, B, and C is what this child needs. Sometimes you'll go into the court and say that, and they'll say, well, we think that this needs to happen. And so that can be kind of frustrating to have this idea of what's best for the child and have to fight so hard for it, and sometimes not be able to get that for them. Excuse me. Benefits of the job, though. Obviously, if you're a volunteer, you're not going to have a lot of paid benefits. Your benefit is just being a volunteer and the good that makes you feel. But if you are a paid employee, you can plan on getting the benefits that any other employee in that organization would get. So if it's a smaller organization, it's going to be less benefits. A lot of times they don't have those things set up. But as you work towards the larger organizations, you're going to get things like health insurance and dental insurance and things like that. Common job tasks for the job would be accompanying the child to court appointments or anything dealing with their victimization. So if they have to meet with social workers or a foster family or anything like that, you're going to meet with them. And this, like I said before, if the parent is involved, sometimes, if the abuse or the neglect was only one parent, you're going to be the advocate for the child and the non-guilty parent. So sometimes you're going to be accompanying the child and their parent and helping both of them through this process, whereas sometimes it's just the child that you're dealing with. Another job task that I think is really important is learning the point of view of the child, learning what they know about the situation, how they felt, what happened to them, what they saw, things like that, so that they don't have to be interviewed over and over again. As you go through this process, policemen are going to be interviewing them, lawyers, judges, social workers, things like that. And rather than have these small children having to go through all of that and reliving the situation over and over, you can be the advocate, and then these cops or whoever can come to you and say, what happened? Let us know what this part of the story is, things like that. So I'm sure that that's really beneficial to the child. And you're going to help the child throughout the whole process. From the time that they are victimized, you come in as the advocate, you help them through the court process, you let judges know what you think is best for them, then you help them with the social workers as they put them into foster care, then you help them until they get adopted, and that's kind of, once they're adopted and they're in that permanent home, that's kind of when the case is closed, and you're oftentimes the only adult through that whole process, especially if both parents caused the abuse, and so they're not in the picture. You're going to be the only constant in that whole situation. And then another job task would be exploring organizations and opportunities that will help the child in their situation, finding homes for them or housing until they find a permanent home, finding grants and helping them fill out paperwork for things like that. So that's kind of a day-to-day. For educational requirements, if you're a volunteer, there's not a lot of requirements, just that you can do what's asked. But if you are getting a paid position, a lot of times you need at least a bachelor's in social work or a related field, and then they often require 2 years of experience in the field or working with victims. A starting salary that I found was about $31,000, and then experience goes up to about $36,000. So not a huge pay, but definitely a fulfilling job. And the only other miscellaneous information was that you'll often need, or you will need, a driver's license, obviously, because you're going to be attending all these different things with them and meeting with the families and things like that. So hopefully that helps. The website for CASA was casaforchildren.org, and that explained a lot about what a child advocate does and how to get involved and things like that.